Welcome back to Storytelling and Beyond, where everyday lives unfold into extraordinary stories. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and join us for tales that touch the heart and awaken the soul. Michael Carter stood alone in his darkened restaurant, the familiar hum of the freezer silenced, the once welcoming aroma of grilled sandwiches and fresh pie now replaced by the sterile scent of emptiness. He ran a hand through his graying hair, staring at the closed sign now taped crookedly to the window. Carter's Diner had been his world, a small-town eatery built with his own two hands, powered by a dream and decades of hard work. But dreams don't always pay rent. The last economic downturn had hit his neighborhood like a wrecking ball. The big franchises with slick ads and deep discounts swallowed his regulars. Bills piled up. Staff left. And now, the doors were shut for good. Michael sighed as he flipped the light switch for what he believed would be the final time. Darkness blanketed the dining room like a curtain falling on the end of a play. It was nearly midnight. A cold drizzle had begun, tapping on the pavement like a slow, mournful rhythm. Michael stepped out and locked the door, shoving the ring of keys deep into his coat pocket. As he turned to leave, he noticed someone tucked under the diner's awning, barely a shadow at first, just a hunched figure wrapped in layers of mismatched clothing. A girl, no older than her early 20s, face buried in her knees, hair damp and clinging to her cheeks. He approached, cautious. "You okay?" She flinched but nodded without lifting her head. "You got somewhere to go?" he asked. This time, no answer. Just the smallest shake of her head. Michael hesitated. He had nothing left to give, not money, not a job, not even a couch. But there was something about her, maybe the way she curled up like a wounded bird or the fact that she hadn't begged, hadn't even looked at him with expectation. She just sat there, holding herself together the best she could. Without thinking, he pulled the diner keys from his pocket. "Look, there's still some food. In the fridge. Might be a few cans in the back pantry too. It's warm inside. You can sleep in the booth if you need. I'm not coming back for a while." Lila stared at him, stunned. Her eyes darted between his face and the keys he was holding out. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice hoarse, as if unused to kindness. Michael shrugged. "Because you look like you need it more than I do right now." She took the keys with trembling fingers, her lips parting like she wanted to say more, but the words never came. Michael gave a final nod and walked away into the wet night, unsure of what he had just done. Inside the diner, Lila stood frozen for a moment before slowly stepping in. The air smelled of dust and fading memories. She flipped on a light and wandered to the kitchen, where she found a few cans of beans, some flour, half a loaf of bread. It wasn't much, but it was something. Enough to remind her of better days. She made herself a small meal, wiped down a booth, and curled up on the vinyl seat with a folded apron as a pillow. For the first time in months, she slept indoors. But when dawn broke, something stirred inside her. She didn't want to just stay hidden and then disappear like she always did. She wanted to repay the man who gave her this tiny moment of dignity. By 6 a.m., she was cleaning. By 7, the windows sparkled. By 8, the booths were wiped down, the counter cleared, the coffee machine humming. Lila had once worked in a roadside cafe before life unraveled, and the rhythms came back like second nature. A few passers-by slowed their steps as they noticed the lights on inside Carter's Diner. One elderly man, curious, tapped on the door. Lila hesitated but then pushed it open. "We're not officially open," she said awkwardly. "But I can pour you some coffee." The man smiled, walked in, and sat down. "That'd be great, sweetheart." Another neighbor came in when he saw the first. Then a woman from the flower shop across the street. By noon, half a dozen people were inside, sipping coffee and eating grilled cheese made from the salvaged pantry. One woman asked if Lila was Michael's daughter. She just smiled and said, "No. Just a friend." People began leaving tips in a jar. Someone returned later that day with a basket of bread. Another brought soup ingredients. It was like the town had been waiting for the diner to wake up again, and all it needed was someone to breathe life back into it. Lila worked quietly, humbly, and with care. She wrote notes to herself on the old order pad, planning ways to make the menu stretch. She found a forgotten radio behind the counter and let soft jazz fill the air. The place felt warm again. She didn't know if Michael would come back, or what he would say when he did. But she wanted him to know this place still had meaning. And so did she. 2 days later, Michael stood outside the diner with a bag of groceries in one hand, unsure why he'd returned. Maybe it was guilt, maybe habit, or maybe something deeper he couldn't quite name. When he left Lila there, he hadn't expected to come back. But something tugged at his heart as he passed the familiar storefront again. What he saw made him stop in his tracks. The closed sign was gone. In its place, a handwritten note in blocky letters read, "Coffee's hot, come on in." The windows gleamed. Fresh flowers sat in a jar on each table. A soft jazz tune drifted through the air when the door opened and a bell chimed overhead. Inside, 3 customers sat quietly sipping coffee and chatting. Lila, wearing a borrowed apron and her hair pulled into a tidy bun, moved gracefully between them, refilling mugs and jotting notes on an old order pad. She hadn't seen Michael yet. He stood there, awestruck, not saying a word as he took it all in. The counter was polished. The chalkboard menu was updated with neat handwriting. There were warm pastries in a basket by the register. The diner felt alive, more alive than it had in years. Finally, Lila turned and froze when she saw him. "Michael," she breathed. I wasn't expecting this," he said, glancing around. "I didn't mean to overstep," she replied quickly. "I just couldn't let it sit here, empty. You gave me a key, a chance. I wanted to give something back." He stepped forward, shaking his head, a mixture of disbelief and emotion rising in his chest. This is incredible." She smiled, a touch of nervous pride showing in her eyes. The neighbors helped. They remembered what this place used to be. I think they missed it. Michael looked around again. I missed it too. A woman in her 60s walked over from the corner booth. "You must be the owner. We were just telling your girl here how happy we are the diner's back. She's done a beautiful job." Michael glanced at Lila, who quickly looked down, cheeks flushed. "She's not my girl," he said softly. "But I think she might have just saved my dream." Later, after the last customer left, they sat together in the booth by the window. Michael finally asked the question that had been circling his mind since he saw her that night under the awning. "Lila, why were you out there alone?" She hesitated, then quietly said, "My mom passed away 2 years ago. I was supposed to move in with an aunt in another state, but she turned me away when I got there. I didn't want to be a burden. I just kept moving, trying to disappear." Michael leaned back, absorbing the weight of her words. "You didn't disappear," he said. "You built something. You brought this place back." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with quiet strength. "I just needed someone to see me." "You did." And in that moment, Michael realized something profound. Sometimes, saving someone else ends up saving you too. The following morning, as golden sunlight bathed the diner's front windows, Michael arrived early. He brought in a box of fresh supplies: eggs, butter, pancake mix, and set it gently on the counter. Lila was already there, wiping down the tables, humming softly to herself. When she saw him, she smiled with that same gentle expression that now lived in his memory. "I thought we could try a breakfast special today," Michael said, sliding the box toward her. Lila lit up. "Pancakes?" "Yeah. Real fluffy ones. People around here miss that kind of thing." They moved in sync, setting up the kitchen, arranging condiments, checking the coffee machine. It wasn't official or planned, but something between them had shifted. There was no boss, no employee, just 2 souls tethered by second chances. The bell over the door jingled as a few familiar faces walked in. An older couple. A teenager with a backpack. A delivery man who dropped off fresh produce and stayed for a cup of coffee. The air filled with laughter, the scent of sizzling batter, and quiet jazz in the background. Business picked up faster than expected. Word had spread Carter's Diner was open again, and it had heart. In between taking orders and flipping pancakes, Michael caught Lila standing by the window, staring thoughtfully at something outside. "You okay?" he asked, walking over. She nodded slowly, then turned to him with a faraway look. "There's something I haven't told you yet." Michael set down his towel. "You don't have to." "No, I want to." Her voice was steady. "Before I ended up on the streets, I had a college scholarship. Business and hospitality. I was top of my class. But when my mom got sick, I dropped everything to take care of her. I used our savings to pay for her treatments. After she passed, there was nothing left. School cut me off. Loans piled up. And eventually, I lost everything." Michael's chest tightened. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I didn't want pity. I just needed to feel useful again. To earn back my dignity." He looked at her, really looked at her, not as a girl who needed help, but as someone who had fought every step of the way to stay kind, stay strong, stay standing. "Lila," he said, "what if we partnered up?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking about walking away from this place for good. But now, I see what it could be. What we could make it. Together. I can handle the investments and the business side. You run the floor, hire staff, design the menu. We turn Carter's into something bigger." Tears welled in her eyes. "Are you serious?" He nodded, smiling. "Dead serious. You saved this place. I'd be a fool not to see that." She laughed through her tears, covering her mouth as emotion overwhelmed her. "I never thought I'd get a second chance, not like this." "You gave me one first," Michael said. "Let's build something real, Lila. Together." They shook hands over the counter, but it felt more like sealing a promise. Outside, the town moved on as usual. But inside Carter's diner, something new had begun, a partnership, a friendship, and the start of a dream reignited. Thank you for joining us here at Storytelling and Beyond, where every story reminds us that a single act of kindness can change a life. Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming tales from the soul.